Hello, this is the week 6 of my Christmas logs, which is show week, so it's the following Sunday. And I'd like to talk about what I've done as a performer and how my research, how my logs have really helped me with my development for this show. Here we go. So I want to start off, camera's going. I want to start off with Barbie. So Barbie is a piece that I was asked to do by some of my peers, and it is a mashup of the Barbie opening number, I'm Just Ken, and Dance the Night Away. It involves partner work and also some individual character work as Ken. For this, we all wore pinks and blues to represent our characters that we were playing. This number was created a while back, so we've been doing it since the auditions, and it has always been a part of the show. There was no doubt about that, so that is something that we have done all the way through. This piece is probably one of the pieces that for me has been the easiest to do. There hasn't been many complications on my part. There's been a few complications with things like the backing track and the singing. However, the dance and the character has never been a problem specifically for me, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is how I have found it and what I have done to help me. So to help me with understanding the character of Barbie, Ken even, was I just looked at some photos. I looked at some photo inspiration to go along with my character, and I did a bit of research on what the character Ken and how it was portrayed, but also like how it was portrayed a long time ago and how it's portrayed now. My camera keeps falling down. And it is very stereotypical. It's very over-the-top male-presenting characters, which is what all the boys have done. And it is very much like constantly flexing your muscles, just really masculine presenting, really stereotypical. And one thing also that Liam has told us before is that when you're portraying characters, you can portray them to the point where it looks ridiculous, not to the point where you're taking the mick out of something. And that's definitely not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be taking the mick or showing a specific stereotype. I wanted to go over the top so it looks really silly, which is what I feel like I have achieved. I think because I've gone so over the top with it, it looks silly, which is what we were looking for. It was a very, what's the word for it? Not dramatic. It's very, I don't know. It's just very charismatic. It's a very charismatic piece, so that is what we did. And the dance moves were really easy to pick up, and usually when I do dance pieces I really struggle with picking it up if like you look at all of my logbooks over the past year or so. And with Barbie, pardon me. And with Barbie, that wasn't the case. I really picked it up really quickly, and I made sure that I asked questions where I needed to. And because I did that, that made it very easy to put on the performance, and I didn't feel worried about it. Whereas last year in my Christmas performance, say for instance when I was doing Hot Honey Rag, I was really apprehensive about doing that piece because I wasn't confident. But because I'd already had my character down for Barbie, that made it a lot easier for me to do the dance moves in a way that I felt comfortable doing them. And a lot of dance moves I would have told you I couldn't have done, but I did do them, and that was really effective. And you could tell it was effective because of the response that we had from the audience. Now the audience were absolutely amazing on all 3 of the nights. When Barbie came on, especially when the Kens came on, it kind of uplifted the performance in a way that they thought, yeah, this is going to be good, this is going to be a good piece. So I feel like I really executed that, and I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Another piece that I was in as well was the ballet. Again, I will constantly say that I am not a dancer. However, because I had learnt my piece and because I had knew what I was doing, that made it so much easier for me to go on the stage and feel confident in what I was doing. Now, again, majority of the time, like last year when I did the ballet piece, I was very uncomfortable doing it. I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't feel confident in myself, but because I took the time to learn what I was doing and to have a good understanding of the story and what I was doing, that made it very easy to give a convincing performance as a snowflake. So we were like snowflake fairy kind of things, and we were a part of the story where everything calmed down a little bit, and I feel like we really executed that. Now, I know this because what I tend to do before my performances is that I don't tell my family members about any of them before they come and see. So when I do my logs, I can come back and explain from an audience perspective. So I didn't tell my mum or dad anything about the ballet piece, and they understood it. They understood why we were on stage as in Group B. They understood why we were there and what we were doing. And that told me that I was doing what I was doing right. And like feedback from my parents was essentially that it looked really effective, we looked really elegant on stage, and that is what we were going for. So that is a piece, again, that I'm very proud of. And then slowly after that, we went on to Officer Krupke. Officer Krupke was a piece that we put together essentially 2-3 weeks before the Christmas showcase, due to not being able to do our other dance piece that we had done with Cheryl, just because of attendance of others, which we overcame really quickly by saying to ourselves, you know what, we can do something else with what we were doing. So it fitted into the little section of West Side Story that we had. So Officer Krupke, again, is based off of gang members, and they're taking the mick out of social workers, policemen, everybody that is doing them a disservice as a community. So we were taking the mick out of them. And again, this was another piece that we needed to be very careful in how we approached it. So there's a part of the song where it says mentally disturbed. Now that's a very fine line if you don't do it properly. So again, Liam had spoken to us about how we should ensure that when we are taking the mick out of certain things, we make sure that we don't do it so we're actually taking the mick out of those people who have those conditions. It is essentially taking it so far that it looks silly. And I feel like that we did that. I feel like I did that. I made sure that I was absolutely ridiculous on the stage, especially when being Officer Krupke. Being Officer Krupke, I had to be very full of myself as a police officer. I was very like, blah, 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 blah. I was really just going crazy with it. And I think that that was effective as well. And because of my facial expressions and because of the character development that I had researched, that made it very easy for me to fit into that performance and again feel comfortable with what I was doing. And that was one of my aims for my shows, was to feel comfortable in what I was doing, because that, as an actor, is something that I struggle with. If I don't know what I'm doing, or if I don't know my character, or if I don't know the meaning of the song, then I find it really difficult to tap into what character I need to be on stage. But because I had done my research, again, I knew what I was doing. So that went down really, really well, and the audience seemed to love it. And the dancing was great. It really showcased kind of the goofiest side of what we were doing, and myself as well. And then we went on to Run Freedom Run. Run Freedom Run is quite similar to Officer Krupke in the sense of the style of theatre, not necessarily the storyline, but just the style of it. And it is based in Urinetown, which is a place where people have to pay to pee. And if they don't pay to pee, then they go to Urinetown, which is essentially, they get cut off, they die. So we are kind of getting told by Jalen, like, this whole thing that he's realised, it's kind of like a revelation kind of moment, and we're like, yeah, Run Freedom Run, which is the name of the song. And again, that was very effective. I think our costumes also pulled it in all together. We had rags on, we had our old clothes, like painting clothes is what I wore, and I think that added that little bit of the piece that it needed. Run Freedom Run for me was one of the trickier ones in terms of harmony. The harmony for that I found really, really difficult. It was higher than I was used to singing, but I sang sopranos with Lloyd and some of my other fellow peers, and we had to work really, really hard on learning our harmonies for that, and they were really tricky just because of how they were layered in the thing. However, because we had got it down, and majority of the time we had got it right, it was effective in the way that it needed to be. So that went really, really well. And then after that was 9 to 5, going into Made in Dagenham. 9 to 5 was a piece that I was put in because I worked really hard on my harmonies and I knew what I was doing. I think for me, I had an advantage because I did 9 to 5 the previous year with my Amdram, so I knew what I was doing. But not only did that feel good that I was chosen to put in that, but also I felt like I could help other people in that situation because, again, I knew what I was doing. And I was placed into that, and we did a bit of a dance number. However, halfway through, like, rehearsing that, I realised that that wouldn't be very efficient for me to do that because I was on for Made in Dagenham straight away. So I came on after the bus scene, which I haven't got a video of, but I'm going to explain that in like my log when I talk about my development and things like that. And then I went into Made in Dagenham. Now, Made in Dagenham, again, is based in Dagenham, which is in London. It talks about the struggles that men and women both faced during that time period of living on the breadline, not having good payments for work, all sorts of different things, and it talks about their story. And this specific song is based off of the women who are like, this is what we want. We're not getting the right workplace, we're not getting the right materials, there's creaky chairs, the ceiling is leaking, and that all is said in the song. And my job, being one of the men in the performance, was to kind of be like, well, I don't know what you want me to do, because I'm also in the same situation as you. So I feel like I portrayed that really, really well when we did that. And being Monty, it is a case of, I lost my train of thought. I was on a really good one then. Yeah, also, because we are the men in that as well, I know that me and the boys also wanted to showcase that we still had the hierarchy in that time period. And I think that we showed that well in terms of how we stood. And I think that was really important, is how we stood. Whereas the women were sat down on the chairs, like, going through lots of different emotions, where we was just stood there like, what do you want us to do about it? And it showed that sense of hierarchy during that time period, which really helped the context of the song, I think. And then we went through that, and then we did What's Her Name, which again is the same kind of story, which talks about how the women aren't getting what they want and what they want and what they need. And I think that that worked really, really well with Lizzie, Sadie and Libby. So that's what we did. And then we did our Christmas number, which was Merry Christmas Everybody, which didn't require much acting or anything like that. It was kind of just the bows, and we had a lovely time. However, in my written logs and my written evaluation, I'm going to talk about the troubles that we faced, how we overcame them, the negative and positive impacts, and how I came over them, but also how it helped me be the performer that I was on the show. And that will kind of link into this video of how I've explained what we did for the show. So my evaluation is going to be kind of explaining what I did to get to this video, if this makes sense. But yes, and there'll also be my video evidence as well, which is great. But there we are. I think that I have done really, really well this Christmas showcase. I feel like I've really pushed myself as opposed to last year. I think I've really worked hard this year, which has definitely paid off because I really enjoyed myself. And I'm really excited to see what happens next. And I know that I can carry everything I've learned this Christmas showcase onto next year, or to the end of year show, or to the FMP, which is really exciting. But yeah, that's done now.